Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Palau, and I'm really excited that you are here. We are kicking off a new series, and for anybody that's been around me for a minute knows how much I love the Enneagram. And I love it because for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons in particular is it gives us language to use to help improve our communication and understand a little bit about why we thrive in certain areas and why we struggle in certain areas. And again, so much conflict that comes from people, one person's having certain expectations over certain things, specifically when it comes to clutter and organization. If you're looking at roommates or spouses or parent-child, really there's just so many different areas that we can dive into and unpack. And so if you are brand new to the Enneagram, we've done series before. You can absolutely go back and check those out. But today we're going to focus in on the series that we're starting has to do with our 5 clutter pitfalls. Now, I talk about in Hot Mess, the 3 main types of clutter, which as you guys know are physical clutter, the stuff that you see, emotional clutter, which is the guilt and fear and all that stuff that holds us back. And then of course we talk about calendar clutter, which is being overscheduled. And then the next step in our identifying where we struggle with clutter is looking at those 5 clutter pitfalls. And we're going to run through them. I'm going to give a very top line overview, but every episode in this series is going to focus in on one of the pitfalls and specifically how that particular pitfall relates to the different types on the Enneagram. So the 5 clutter pitfalls, just to remind you guys, are procrastination, indecision, guilt, and its little sister, twin sister fear, overwhelm, and then of course time. And so today I felt like it would be way too much, way too overwhelming and a super long episode to cover all of them in one. Like I said, we're breaking it down into a series, and today we're kicking it off talking all about procrastination. And so I decided for this particular series, I wanted to seek out the advice and input from a lot of Enneagram experts that are. So joining me today is Brittany Thomas, and many of you might be familiar with Brittany from her Instagram handle, which is called Enneagram Explained. And she's based in Southern California, where she lives with her husband and 5 kiddos. She's an Enneagram 1 with a 9 wing, and we can talk a little bit about that. And she's a certified Enneagram coach and enthusiast. And I reached out to her and I explained what we were doing. And she said, I would absolutely love to come on and talk about this. So without further ado, let me welcome my new friend, Brittany, to the show. Welcome, Brittany.
Hey, thanks for having me. It'll be fun.
I'm really excited to dive into this. And before we hit record, you and I were just chatting. And the Enneagram is so encompassing. There's so many different layers that it's easy to go down a rabbit hole, and it's easy to oftentimes get overwhelmed. And I said, for our intents and purposes, I'm hoping to try to give actionable, bite-sized, digestible content for our listeners. So I'm really excited that you're going to be walking us through this. But before we get into everything, I'm wondering if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about you.
I feel like you covered everything about me already. I am a certified Enneagram coach. I do have 5 kids ranging from 17 to 8, which sounds like a lot, but based on my husband and my personality, they've molded into what we need. So it doesn't seem as chaotic as it is. And yeah, I'm in Southern California. I was born and raised here. I'm transplanted to Seattle for almost 18 years. And I'm back in Southern California now, which is
interesting now that I'm older.
I'm just curious. So what are your mix of boys to girls in your crew?
Yeah, I've got 2 boys followed by 3 girls. So we kept the genders separate. It was convenient.
Yeah, you're definitely like you have this spectrum of we're almost out the door and yet we still have the lower half.
It's very weird. I do really well with babies.
Okay.
And even kids. It's this transition period where I'm in now where I'm letting go of the reins of my older ones and letting them get a job. And my 2 oldest will be both dual enrolling in college this fall. And so I'm not homeschooling them anymore and hoping that they have what it takes to survive college. My oldest has already done a year, so he's actually doing just fine, which is good. It helps reassure my Enneagram.
That's the firstborn. That's the firstborn.
Oh yeah, I know. We could just toss him in a room full of books and he would have a college education eventually because he's just that kind of kid. But I'm getting there. I'm not really ready for him to actually move out of the house yet. That is an area I'm going to have to let go eventually.
We can talk about that because I am all about my oldest she just graduated college and recently just moved to Chicago. So, and we're in the Northeast. So I can talk all about that whole season. It is a very different style of parenting. That is for sure. But I want to really dive in today. So tell us just before we get into it, I'm always curious, give us your kind of Enneagram journey. Like, how did you get introduced to the Enneagram? How did this become something that you're like, I want to just more than just like a conversation starter at a party, really want to dive into this and turn this into a career.
Mm-hmm. So I actually dug my heels against the Enneagram when I first heard about it. I don't know why. I thought it was a fad and I didn't just want to jump in and follow the crowd. So I actually held off while all my friends were getting into it. Eventually something clicked. And so I just borrowed all the library books, went down a huge rabbit hole of the Enneagram, started doing Enneagram book groups with my friends, started my Instagram account because I needed somewhere to just blurt out all the Enneagram stuff without ruining my personal feed and my friends hating me. So that's why I started the Enneagram account initially. And then I got certified as a coach because I realized that was just the next step. If I'm already this deep in, I might as well actually make this more of a career. And so that's where I started. It's one of those things where I think at first it was just another personality test. It was cool. I liked that it explained who I was. And then as you got deeper and I realized there was more to it, I think it was just this eye-opening thing of I now could see that there are 8 other types besides my type of how to see the world, how to interact with the world. It really helped me have more grace for other people because based on my personality type as a 1, I have a very like black and white, right and wrong mentality. And so pre-Enneagram, I just judged everybody or thought why can't you handle this? This isn't a big deal. You should be able to do this. But I could, but that doesn't mean the other 8 types could have. And so it's given me a lot more grace and understanding of how people work. And so I can actually be nicer to them or have normal expectations instead of my high expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I always say, I think it's great to first, obviously, like most things, start with yourself. But it is really helpful if you're in conversations with people, whether it's, again, spouses or coworkers or whatever, that also have an understanding of the Enneagram. And again, it gives you context for knowing, we need to have a longer runway. We need to just pull the trigger, or this person's going to have to analyze it 75 times before they do something. Anyway, I love that. Okay. So we talked about, or I mentioned at the top of the episode, obviously the 5 clutter pitfalls. And I really thought it would be helpful if we really looked at one of them and just went through almost all the types, giving an overview of what each one is as you're going through it. And then because we still have people that are in that self-discovery mode. And I don't know about you, but I believe that the best way to learn about the Enneagram is really self-discovery, not just a quiz. It's a great starter, but as it's not always the most accurate. So the more that we can hear from people like yourself explaining it, sometimes it clicks when you hear one person explain it versus somebody else. I'm going to turn the reins over to you and let you take it away.
Okay. So as you've mentioned, there are 9 Enneagram types. And I will preface right now that there is way more to it than just 9. 9 types. There's a lot more. It's the tip of the iceberg to find your type. There's a whole bunch more underneath that's actually going to be affecting you too. But you do need to find the main type because that's where going to be most of your growth work and stuff is. I'm going to categorize them a little bit based on we call them triads or their center of intelligence, which is just each of these groups takes in their world and processes it either through their thinking, their feeling, or their doing. And sometimes I'm going to preface that doesn't seem what you do right off the bat. So I think I process with doing. And I'm very much a do, but I would also think, no, I'm a thinker too. I think all the time. But doing is what my first instinct is to do. And so sometimes it'll get a little hazy of like, you feel like we all use all 3. We just use one dominantly. And so I'm going to break them up based on those so that you can see, oh, I'm probably in this group. I'm probably a doer, or I'm probably a feeler or a thinker. But then I'll break it up by the 9 types too. So everybody can actually hopefully find their type, or if not, find a few that kind of resonate with them. The first one I'm going to do is it's technically called the gut triad, but they're doing or instinct based. And so they're not really thinking about things first. It's just, oh, that needs to be done. I'm going to do that. Or it doesn't need to be done. And I'm not going to do that since we're talking about procrastination. And so
exactly.
So in the doing triad is 8, 9, and 1. And so I'm actually going to start with 8, which did you say you are an 8?
I was just going to say, I didn't want to interrupt. I'm an 8 and I love to hear how people describe and to see where I'm like, because I knew my type early on and I didn't ask you, did you recognize your type? Like, did it jump out at you when you first learned about it? Were you like, oh yeah, that's definitely me? Or did it take you a little while?
I actually mistyped as a 6 initially. I have my father to blame for a bit of that because he ingrained so much of his type 6 traits in me that I just recognized those traits initially. And so my big thing that I always talk about is your traits mean squat when it comes to the Enneagram, at least in finding your type. And so it wasn't until I actually looked at the core motivations, which we'll get to in a second, that I realized, oh, I have a lot that looks like a 6, but I actually am in a 1 because I do all those things for the motivation of 1 and not 6's motivation. Yeah, it was one of those things where 6 was very high, 1 was very high, but it took me a while to actually figure out which one I was.
Yeah. And that happens for a lot of people. Mine like screamed right out at me. And I was like, yeah. And I read it and read more. And I was like, yeah, this is what it is. But let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about, we're starting with the gut triad, people. So we're the teaching, instead of starting at 1, we're starting at 8. So here we go.
And I actually hate starting at any other number than 1 because I like to go numerically, but it works for the triad.
Exactly. So go for it.
All right. So 8s are going to be, I'm going to give you the motivation first, and then I'll work it into how it works with procrastination. So 8s want to be strong, independent, protective of themselves, but also it'll include those close to them, their people. And so I think a lot of times that gets left out with type 8s is they get perceived as this strong bully, but really they're just trying to protect themselves and their closest people. And so that's what they're motivated for. But their core fear, the flip side of it, is they don't want to be weak or harmed or controlled. Not necessarily that they have to be the ones in control, but they have to, if they're being controlled, if somebody's above them, they've got to have somebody who they trust their authority, who's doing it well. If somebody's not controlling the situation well, the 8 will take over because it needs to be done right or justly. That's the core motivation. But working into the procrastination side of things, type 8s might procrastinate because they don't want others telling them what to do. Even if it's somebody telling you, okay, you need to be at this party, it starts at 2. An 8 might be like, no, this is my weekend. It's my time. I'm going to show up when I want to. I don't know if that resonates with you. I know somebody like that. I'm putting it out there, but I'm not a big procrastinator in general. And again, I'm just speaking for myself, and not every 8 looks the same or any type looks the same. Right. Procrastination causes me anxiety. So I don't procrastinate for the most part.
there are things that I will kick the can down the road a little bit. And it's mostly because I find them boring or not interesting or fun. I'm actually a procrastinator when it comes to packing. If we're going away, I'm somebody that will wait to the last minute because I'm just like, it's annoying and I don't really care for it.
Yeah.
When it comes to like important things like a project, a deadline, even in school, like I was somebody that the thought of leaving something to the last minute caused me anxiety. So I would rather get ahead of it and leave that margin in case something went awry than wait to the last minute. I don't know if that makes sense or if anybody out there can relate.
Yeah, I'm a 1, but I totally resonate with that. And I think my son's an 8, and I think that's very similar. And he's a firstborn 8, so that might have some of it too. But he's very much everything's done on time or early. I don't usually have to worry about dragging him out of bed to go somewhere. But yeah, so these are all, they're going to be some sort of basics. Most of this hopefully will hit. But like I said, there's this tip of the iceberg that we're hitting. And then there's a whole bunch of other reasons you could be procrastinating. Even just your Myers-Briggs type could have effects into it, or how you were raised will affect. This won't be the one answer of why you procrastinate.
Yeah, no. And I always tell people, it's worth repeating, like the Enneagram in general and how we apply it here at This Organized Life. It's really just, again, I call it a framework to give you tools in your toolbox. It is not the gospel. It is not the excuse. It is not all of those things. It is just to give you an understanding and hopefully some clarity, like you said, some grace and some language to be able to say, okay, why is this strategy not working? Or what strategies can we use that are going to make sense? Because a strategy that works for an 8 might be totally different than a strategy that works for a 4. And as opposed to either white knuckling your way through clutter and organization or anything in your life, but specifically for our purposes, let's try to use the language, the strategies and the systems that are going to just align organically with what already works.
Definitely.
So, all right. Let's move to the 9s. Do you have any 9s in your family?
I do. I have a lot in my extended family. And then I have one child he's probably a 9. He's still teetering like a 9 would. And I'm pretty sure he's a 9, but we're still letting him kind of work through things. But yeah, I have quite a few 9s for some reason. A 9's going to be motivated by wanting to have peace. And that can be external peace with people in their lives and being connected to them. But it can also be internal peace. I have a 9 that she has to clean the house all the time because clutter will disrupt her peace. She'll be way too messed up with it. And so it can be a little bit of both. It can be more on one side or the other. They also want to be like harmoniously connected to others. They don't want conflict or discord or any sort of fragmentation in their relationships. And they can procrastinate usually if their peace is going to be disrupted, or if they feel like taking action might cause conflict with somebody, they will put it off because they don't want to cause conflict. And so they just don't. And that's typically why a 9 might procrastinate. They are in the doing triad, but I will add that theirs is a little bit tricky. So they notice what needs to go. They notice what needs to happen. They'll instinctively know this needs to happen. Somebody should do something about this. But they don't necessarily connect it to, I need to do this. They might think it needs to be done, but it's not my place. I'm not whatever for that job.
I have a daughter. My older daughter's a 9 and she is a master procrastinator. And I think a lot of this, her personality is very chill. She absolutely is conflict avoidant, does not like it at all. She's the type of person. And again, this is also very individual specific. Like when she was in school, like she could wait to the last minute and that never stressed her out. And she was still able to get like really good grades. And I kept saying, when you get to college, when you get to high school, this is going to be a problem. And it wasn't. When you get to college, this is going to be a problem. And it wasn't. And so it's hard when you are not, it's not a pain point. So the procrastination for her was not a pain point. And so I think for a lot of people, it's if I can do that, if I can wait to the 11th hour and I still am able to land on top, why? And I see that a lot with like parents and kids, or specifically when it comes to, I want you to clean your room or do the dishes or whatever it is. And they're like, I'll get to it later. It's not bothering me. I call those people clutter blind. if it's not something that is really in their way, it just isn't a priority.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for a lot of people, specifically some of the 9s that I've met, and I don't know if you see this in your work, but again, I'm looking at it through that lens of clutter and organizations. A lot of the 9s, like they look at like the breakfast dishes are sweating the small stuff, and we don't want to sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, there definitely can be a lot of that. You touched on the point of them being like clutter blind. I think too, a line of growth for a 9 to think about, especially in this area, is they don't care about the clutter because it's not bothering them. And maybe they put it off because they don't want to disrupt their peace, or maybe they're putting off having a hard talk with somebody because they don't want that piece disrupted, right? But the trick for the 9 to learn is that they're avoiding conflict now, but they're actually creating conflict in the long term. Like a parent asking your kid to clean up, they don't care. It's not their problem, but they're causing conflict with their parent now because now their parent is angry that they didn't clean their room in 5 minutes because it would only take 5 minutes.
I always say, I'm not sure if it dropped yet or not. We do this like tip of the week on Mondays. And one of them that I've done is, and this is like my new phrase that I've been using a lot, is choose your hard. You're either do you want to take the time now and do it? And yes, it's going to be annoying, but you're saving time later. Or do you want to kick the can down the road, not put your stuff away, whatever? And then when the time comes that you need it, you're scrambling around. So just choose your hard. And I feel like that is something that I'll use it for a lot of different types. But yeah, I think a lot of times I think that's a great example of, yeah, I don't want to rock the boat, but it definitely can come back to bite them later.
Yeah. And I think that's probably actually true of all of our types, is like the thing we're avoiding, we're actually creating at the same time, even if it's this bigger grand scale. So moving into 1s, but if I am always avoiding making mistakes or the wrong action, I'm actually creating this bigger, less perfect for myself, because mistakes are normal. And it's okay if I make a bad decision. I mean, generally, there's definitely some that are worse, which is totally my type 1. No, it's not okay. But I'm missing this whole bigger picture of the ultimate big, good, big, perfect includes mistakes, because it's just not achievable for me to actually be 100% perfect. But yeah, I think a lot of times those things we avoid, they come back to bite us, and we're actually not doing ourselves a service.
I just wrote that down. Anybody that's watching on YouTube, I always am like taking notes whenever somebody a guest says something that I'm like, oh, I want to repeat that. I think that's so true. And yeah, I talk to a lot of 1s. I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but I always, for years, would teach when I would be, whether working one-on-one with a client or if I was giving like a workshop. And I would say, just start small, just do 15 minutes a day and move on. Because to me, I'm like, okay, you're chipping away at it. And that was how I looked at it. And when I started learning about the Enneagram, I started talking to a bunch of 1s, and they were like, that stresses me out. If I can't finish it, I don't want to start it. And I was like, oh, like it's causing me unrest to start this and know that it's like in mid process and I can't complete it. And so my approach was, okay, it completely shifted. And I was like, okay, so if we know that we have this project we want to tackle, when can we carve out time for you to be able to do it from start to finish, as opposed to saying, let's just do a little breadcrumb at a time, because that was more anxiety producing.
Yeah, no, totally resonate with that. And yeah, even to the smallest things, right? Like my kitchen sink has to be empty at night.
So does mine.
Because it needs to be done. Yeah. And some of that is just because I don't want to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, now I have to start the day with a chore. Whereas at least if it's gone in the morning, it's a clean start. I can start with my normal to-do list instead of this extra one. But yeah, I don't want to start organizing a closet unless I can finish organizing the closet that same time span.
And I talk a lot about my husband. I know we're not there yet, but my husband's a 3. And I always, even before I knew anything about the Enneagram, I always said on your tombstone, it's going to say done is better than perfect, because he's all about just get it done. Just get it done and put it out there. And I feel like when it comes to procrastination, the one is the complete opposite. They're like, no, it has to be, I have to write it, rewrite it, make sure it is completely before I put anything out into the world. I have to do that. And so that in and of itself breeds procrastination, even if they're getting a jump start on it, it's that execution of let's get this completed and done.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I mean, totally brings up, definitely talked a lot about one, but to actually properly cover them, that's the thing for ones is like, we want it good, perfect. We don't want any mistakes. We don't want anything half done. We don't want it to be the wrong choice. And so we will put off things because we're afraid if I start it, it's not going to be perfect, or I might make a mistake, or like me, like I will put off choosing and calling a dentist if it's like a new dentist because I am afraid of making the wrong choice. Mm-hmm. Some of that's due to past dentist trauma, but like I am afraid that I'm going to have to go now sit at a dentist and find out that they were the wrong one for me. And so I will put it off forever despite needing to go to the dentist.
Interesting. Yeah. I love that. And I think for people, it's so helpful to just have this insight because on the exterior, somebody might come home. And again, I'm not throwing your husband. I'm just saying your husband could be like, did you make those dentist appointments? And you're like, no. And he might be like, what are you talking about? Like, or vice versa. Like I could see myself getting annoyed at Josh for not doing something and me just going, what were you doing? Or I hate the word lazy, but were you just being lazy? Or why didn't you prioritize that? And really, you were like overthinking. So I think that's such a relevant point.
Yeah.
All right. Should we move into the next?
Yeah, we can move into the next trend. We'll move into our feelers. So they're going to be very much, I think most of them probably fall into your like more emotional clutter area. They probably have trouble with that. Not that they can't have problems with the other areas, but I think that might be a harder one for most of them because they're taking in everything through their feelings and how either they feel or how they want others to feel. And so that's types 2, 3, and 4. And type 2 is they want everything. So this is a core motivation. They want to be needed or wanted, appreciated, lovable. Loved is sometimes used. I actually like to use lovable because everybody wants to be loved. And so I feel like there's a slight difference there. But the flip side being is they don't want to be unwanted or not needed or not appreciated. And so a 2 might procrastinate because 1, they already have a very hard time of putting their needs before anybody else's needs. So they might be busy doing everybody else's things and putting off their things because their things aren't going to make them needed or wanted. Although I think big picture, they would because people want to help you. But they're so focused on making themselves wanted and needed by others. So they're going to be piling their calendar with other people's stuff. Mm-hmm. Or they don't want to, it could even be like they don't want to purge their knickknack that Great Aunt Sue gave them because they don't want Great Aunt Sue to not like them because they got rid of their thing and now they're not wanted, right? There's a lot of this connection of I'm going to do everything to focus on other people so that I'm still wanted and needed. And a lot of their personal stuff will get pushed to the side and they'll procrastinate on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of 2s, and again, and I talk a lot about this in the framework that I put, is like how each one of the types can struggle with the physical clutter, the emotional clutter, and calendar clutter, which are all intertwined, right? If you have calendar clutter and you're never at home to do the thing, you're going to have physical clutter. If you are so emotionally tied to things that you can't ever let anything go, then you're going to have physical clutter. If you're constantly buying things. So they all relate to one another. They're not linear. But yeah, 2s specifically, I think one of the biggest things or 2 of the biggest things which you touched on beautifully was, again, about that I'm just going to drop what I'm doing to help somebody else. That energizes them, makes that worth. Mm-hmm. And then also, again, the procrastination of, which goes deeper into the other pitfalls of, but it really starting that whole, again, like you said, that emotional clutter. Or what if I get rid of this high chair and somebody comes to my house and they have a 2-year-old and I don't have a high chair, even though your kids are 15?
Yeah. I have a few things like that. I still have my baby carrier, and it's not so much for other people. That's more of what if I'm babysitting somebody's kid and I want a carrier? But yeah, that would be I'm growing my 2 wings. So it's in there.
Exactly. Let's switch to threes, because I think threes, and I'm curious as an Enneagram, I'll say an Enneagram expert that's done a lot of work. I know threes are in the feeling center, but in the threes that I know don't seem very feeling dominant. And I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'll start. And I touched on this with 9, but like 9, 3, and 6, they're all in this weird, they're literally in a triangle. So it's like a Bermuda Triangle of them being dominant in their triad, but they're also repressed in their triad. And like I said with the 9, they instinctively know what needs to be done, but they don't necessarily do it. A 3 notices the feelings of others or the expectations of others, right? They can read the room and they will morph into what is needed for that room to make them valued or admired or whatever. But they are very aware of their own feelings. And they're very aware of others, not so much of their own. Or if they think they have their own feelings, sometimes they can be mistaking their own feelings for other people's feelings that they've grafted onto themselves. So yeah, they're in the feeling triad, but they're not really in the feeling triad. They might not be very attached to physical items. They might have no problem purging everything from years past, but they will procrastinate if they think they will become not valued or not admired by whatever action needs to be taken. Or
can you just touch on what I know it is, but the core motivation of the 3? Because I think I jumped, that's my fault. I jumped ahead to.
No, you're fine. Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, 3 wants to be valued, admired. And some of this, I feel like the hardest part with the feeling group is a lot of their core motivations bleed into each other and they look a little bit similar. And so valued, admired, successful, which does not always mean like they want to be the top of the corporate ladder. They just want to be successful in whatever realm they're in, even if it's like just their family. And like I said, it sounds a little bit like a 2 and it'll sound a little bit like a 4 when we get there, but it's very much almost, I think deep down, they want to be valued for who they actually are without all their actions, but they get caught up in the actions. What I do, I hope I'm valued for and stuff like that. And so the opposite side of that is they don't want to not be valued or admired, and the opposite of success is failure. So they don't want to fail. And yeah, their procrastination is going to focus around that of, I don't want to attempt this new task at my work because if I fail at it, then the worst thing in the world has just happened if I fail at it. Or if I calendar clutter, I think is a big thing for 3s because they have a lot to do. And for the most part, they actually can do a lot. I resonate with 3s a lot, actually. They can do a lot of things, but
I always say it because it annoys me. They're like the one type that can actually multitask, which I know people say you can't multitask, you should multitask. And I've been preaching that for years. And I would look at my husband and I'd be like, how can you be watching TV, working on a presentation, and then like your iPad open to a sporting event and be doing all of them? And he's like, I don't know. That's how my brain works. And I was like, I don't know if that's his I don't know if that's his ADD, if it's his 3, but that's something that the more 3s that I've talked to over the years, they really have this innate superpower to be able to juggle things, which also gives a false sense of security that I can handle and add more onto my calendar.
Yes.
So, yeah,
very much. I always give the example because I have a bit of 3 in me, even though I'm a 1, but I will say yes and keep adding my spinning plates. And I don't realize that I can't do it until I add on that last one, and then they all start coming crashing down because I actually am quite capable, but I don't actually know how many plates is my limit, and then they all fall.
That's a great analogy because I think a lot of people can relate to that. I'll pile on until literally that's the last straw, and then that's what sets you over the edge. I think in my experience, and I've talked about this, most of the threes that I know actually have a visceral reaction to physical clutter. They don't like to see it. I think it has to do with that image. Because clutter in and of itself for a lot of people just looks like chaos. And threes want to be that perception, that image of we have it together. And so the physical space of organization, even if it's shoved away, not even properly.
Yeah.
But that's what we just want to see clean surfaces. We don't want to see clutter. We don't want to see things out of place.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they're intentional about organizing it per se. It just means that we just want to get it out of our sight. They're very much out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. It's how little can we do to make this look good and be successful, but they'll procrastinate on fully finishing, right? Like I've heard stories of threes who remodeled the house and it's most of the way done, but this area is done. But it's because now I'm focused on this goal. I need to crush this goal and be successful here. Nobody's really going to see the unfinished bathroom. It's our bathroom. We only use it. It's okay. I've got this now to focus on. And so they can procrastinate finishing things. They're actually pretty good at starting. It's the finishing that they'll put off.
Yes. Yes. So true. So true. Okay. Let's move into the fours.
Yes. Fours are probably your most feely. They're very much on their feelings though. And they're motivated by wanting to find meaning, who they truly are. They want significance into finding who they truly are. They want to have significance for who they are, not significance for what they do, like a three might. And the opposite is they don't want to have no meaning. They don't want to be a cog in the machine. They want to have some sort of ultimate deep purpose in life. And they will get caught up procrastinating because they aren't in the mood or they don't feel like doing something. And I know that sounds superficial to probably many of us, but for them, it's, if I don't feel it, then it's not authentically me. I'm not being who I truly am. If I force myself to do the dishes, I want to go walk in nature or paint or listen to music and really connect with my soul. And so they put off some of the mundane things because they don't feel like it. Of course, the problem is if you don't do your dishes, you can't cook a really creative meal when you feel like it. You got to get the mundane out of the way.
Yes. And again, for our long-term listeners, they know this, but for our new listeners, like my other daughter is a 4. And it was, again, before I had any Enneagram knowledge or language to use, it was trying to get her specifically when it came to organization and clutter. There was a lot, and she has ADHD on top of it. So it was trying to manage the lack of executive function that was not developed properly intuitively for her. And then on top of that, everything had feelings. So the thought of getting rid of things and purging things, we had to go down memory lane. And again, without going down a whole rabbit hole, there are so many things. And really, I had to use completely different organizing strategies with her than I would with somebody else, because if I wanted to authentically not just come in and do it, but really get her to own that process. Because again, I always said my job is to make you a functioning member of society. So I need to teach you this. I can't just come in here and do it. And that I had to learn. I had to get other tools in my toolbox to be able to teach her, because what worked in a very kind of logical, analytical, mainstream, what I might call common sense way, didn't land with her. And so I needed to say, okay, what language can we use? What methods can we instill that is going to that is going to set you up for success so that you can still be authentic to who you are? And for anyone out there, like, it's possible, because she's come so far, and now she recognizes that in order for her to be creative in her space, she can't be surrounded by a lot of physical clutter, that it takes away, it sucks the energy, it sucks the distraction. So if she wants to be creative, we need to, even though it may start to build up, for her, more than maybe some other types may accumulate, she knows that she has her own kind of breaking point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great, yeah, I actually have a 4 daughter as well.
Oh.
And she's actually very organized. It's probably all my type 1 traits ingrained on her with the physical. So she's constantly reorganizing and organizing her and her sister's stuff. You are correct that memories and old paperwork and stuff, she definitely still has. Thankfully, they're all organized in one box. But for her, it's procrastinating on taking action on her dreams. And some of that is fear-based, but a lot of it, I think, is she doesn't want to go through we got her a guitar because she wanted to play guitar, and she does not stick with practicing. Even the most lowest level practicing, she just can't. She's not in the mood for it. She wants to do something else in that moment. And so you're never going to be a guitar player if you don't sit down and do the boring stuff. We all have to go through that. But yeah, for her, it's procrastinating on her dreams in that sense. So
I don't love it. I don't love it for her, but I love that. I love that description because I see that also with, again, like you said, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So, I love that. We're going to take a quick break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to dive all into the head triad. So sit tight. Hey guys, I just want to tell you about an upcoming webinar that I'm going to be hosting on Wednesday, September the 20th. Now I know it's a little ways away, but we're going to be opening up the doors soon for you to register for the webinar. But for now, we are going to be having a wait list because this webinar is only going to be limited to 100 people. And it is geared towards anybody that is interested in either starting a professional organizing business, wondering if this is the right fit for them. Maybe they're just like trying to figure out what their next natural step is. And they like organizing and want to say, is this something that I might be interested in doing professionally? Or maybe you have an organizing business and it's not necessarily growing the way that you want, or you're not attracting the clients that you want. And so if you fall into any of those categories, I strongly encourage you to sign up to attend this webinar. It's completely free, and we'll be giving away lots and lots of free content and information, things for you to think about moving forward. And then anybody that attends gets first crack at joining my one-on-one mentoring program, which is limited to 10 people. That is it, 10. With all the other stuff going on, we are really cracking down on the amount of people that we're going to be bringing into the program. And so if this is something that's for you, definitely jump on the wait list. Again, check out the links in our show notes, check out the links in our bio, and on our website, you will find the sign up for the wait list. And I hope to see you there. All right, Brittany. So if hopefully everyone's still with us, whether you're taking notes or not, you can always go back and listen to this. But I think it's really, again, it's helpful to think about as you're learning about the Enneagram, all of the different nuances, and not that there's one specific way, that textbook way that somebody looks if they're a particular type. But hopefully some of the things that we're talking about are resonating with you of, yeah, I definitely don't do that. Or yeah, that sounds like me. I love talking about the head triad because I just think they're fascinating. So I'll kick it back to you and let you talk about all of our thinking.
Yeah, the head
thinking
types,
centers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, head types or thinking types. Those are going to be types 5, 6, and 7. So they're all taking in the world through their thinking. They're going to be very analytical based, not driven by their emotions, not driven by what needs to happen. It's what do we need to think about? What do we need to research and analyze and come to the proper conclusion before just taking action for most of the types. We'll get deeper into that.
Which is funny. Yeah, exactly. Because there's one of the types in particular that I'm just like, they don't, but I know what you're saying. So I'll put a pin in it. You go.
It gets confusing. Yeah. They all think a lot, but they all think in different ways or at different things.
Totally.
Type 5, that's actually my husband. He's a 5.
I was going to ask what your husband was. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, he is a 5. So they're motivated by wanting to be capable and competent, knowledgeable. They want to be able to handle what's coming at them. The flip side of that is the short-sighted answer would be they don't want to be incapable or incompetent, but that's not enough. You need to go deeper because they don't want to be incompetent because they fear they will be overwhelmed. Their energy will be depleted. They just won't have what it takes, invaded by other things, especially if it's emotional things. They don't want to feel that overwhelm or the discomfort of that overwhelm. And so that's the deeper core motivation. I think if you don't get that deep, a lot of times everybody's, I don't want to be incompetent.
Well, I think we could say that about most of the types, right?
Yeah.
Like a chooser or a helper. Who doesn't want to be a helper? Like everyone wants
Yeah.
to be a helper. But I understand what you're saying. I wonder if you see this with your husband, but in my experience, I've seen a lot of fives procrastinate specifically when it comes to decluttering because they have to have knowledge, right? They have to gather information that and again, fear is another clutter pitfall, but but they get fearful that if I make a decision now, I'm not going to have all the facts. Kind of like you and the dentist, right? You don't want to make that mistake. And the procrastination there's something more fun I'd rather be doing, which is potentially another type, but they are more about, I'm going to procrastinate on this because I don't have all my ducks in a row. I don't have all the knowledge yet to make an educated decision.
Yeah, that is definitely an aspect. It's funny because my husband, he's very minimal like me. So we don't have a lot of clutter, but he will procrastinate on taking action, which is way deeper under the iceberg is why they delay taking action. But like you said, it's because they want to have researched it enough first, or they want to be fully capable or competent in that area before they go start taking action. Because if they aren't and they start taking action too early, they're going to get hit with being overwhelmed by how much they didn't know now, or they weren't prepared. And now they are being invaded by people's emotional problems and opinions on what they're doing or stuff like that. And it's like my husband, honestly, I still don't understand why, but for months, I want to get calendar set up so that I stop missing and double booking myself and missing meetings and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, like just put it on a calendar. Like it takes 2 seconds to build
I'm like, that's like you Google calendar and have all the kids' activities on it. Doesn't seem that complicated.
Yeah. He put it off forever. And I think it was I don't think he needed more research about it. He knew he was probably going to use Google Calendar because that's what we all used, but he didn't want to be overwhelmed by how much it was going to deplete him because his brain's working all the time. So one more thing to do, he didn't have the energy level for that, which is the great thing about the Enneagram and being me and him are married to each other. I was like, well, just let me do it. And so I built him his calendar because I couldn't handle the talking about it anymore. And he wanted it. So we just paired it together and I was able to get that going. But that's very much is a 5 will procrastinate because they want to keep preparing. And their growth point here for them is realizing that how much you have right now is quite possibly enough knowledge and you're capable enough to already start taking action. They tend to over prepare, over research, usually.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about the 6s.
Yes. 6s, I feel like the whole time I was describing 5s, prepare kept coming out, and that's a very 6 word. 6s want to research and prepare and do all that, but because they want security, they want support and guidance from their people. So they will be the people who ask questions from all their friends before making a decision because they fear being without security or without the support of their group. And now I will add that 6s have this weird big spectrum. They will either be quite fearful of whatever's coming at them. And so they will hold off on everything because they're afraid. But then you have the other spectrum where they're still afraid, but it's more, I'm afraid of skydiving. So I'm going to do it to prove myself I'm not scared. And so they're like, they're the exact opposite. And you're like, you look more like an 8. You have no fear. And they're like, no, I'm actually, when they dig deep enough, and it takes a long time, I think, for those types of 6s to find out that their actual core fear is fear itself, because it's so buried under there. I'm just going to prove I'm not afraid. And so it's there, but it's masked in a very different way than is stereotypically described as a 6. And so for a 6, usually they're going to procrastinate, one, because they are so caught up in all the what ifs. What if I clear the closet and I needed that one item in 2 years from now? What if I clean the closet, but then I don't have enough boxes to put everything in and organize things? What if I cancel this appointment because I need to do this, but then that person, they're going through all these what ifs. And so it just stops them from taking action because they're trying to work through all the what ifs. Unfortunately, I think what ifs are always going to be there. You're never going to reach the end of your what ifs. And so sometimes we just have to take action despite all the what ifs. You still can make a very educated guess and be prepared. But you also got to realize action does need to happen eventually. Yeah. And so they get distracted or they start listening to too many voices, right? They want to pull all the people, but if you've got 7 friends telling you 7 different things, you're never going to take action.
Yeah. Trusting in yourself. And again, it's, and that's the beauty of looking at all of the different clutter pitfalls as we work through this series is that there's a lot of overlap, right? That whole what if, that reassurance. I find like a lot of times my 6 clients, they know what they need to do and they're making the decision, but they want that reassurance. They just want me there to say, whether it's like giving them permission. Yeah, it's okay to get rid of that. Or they just need to talk it through with somebody because not necessarily trusting in themselves.
Yes.
And so sometimes they're not as quick to make that decision as say an 8 or maybe a 3 or whatever, because they are in their heads, literally in their heads, thinking about all the different things. And then I guess we'll round everything out with the 7s.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels weird to end the numbers with 7. My brain is not okay with this. But yes. Type 7s want to be satisfied or content. And then they fear being deprived of things because if you're deprived, you're not going to be satisfied or content, or trapped in pain. And that it can be physical pain, but a lot of times it's emotional pain. They don't want to deal with the negatives of life. And I think that's their big area of procrastination with especially clutter, because who wants to organize a closet when you could go hiking? That's trapping yourself in pain. And especially for a 7, they fear it might not never end, which I think with the physical stuff, I think we can all see an end in sight. There's an end to your closet. But with emotional stuff, they don't know where the end is. And so they'll put off processing grief or whatever because they don't know if there's an end to their grief. They feel like they're going to be stuck in that forever and they want to be happy and content. But so they'll put off doing the hard things. And I feel like a lot of 7s I talk to who have not come out on the other side of things, but they've gone through the journey once or twice. They realize that they have to tell themselves, I'm not going to be stuck. I do need to go through this, but there is an end. And I think even sometimes, even if there's not an end, grief, for example, is a very long process. But that doesn't mean they have to jump in and live there for the next 2 years. They can jump in and then they can put a pause on it. I don't think you can really fully pause grief, but they don't have to stay there. They can commit, like you said, carve out 5 minutes to do the closet and then let the timer ring and then go do something fun. They don't have to commit to doing 1 day of organizing the garage. They can do 5 minutes and then move on. And it's one of those things that you're not causing yourself to suffer by dealing with these hard things. You can choose to do it for a set amount of time and then go do the things you love. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, I love that. And to me, I always think the word freedom comes to my mind when I think of 7s. It's just, if I were to try to think, I know their official name is like the enthusiast, but I think of freedom. They want that freedom. They don't like to be, they want that flexibility. Again, they're a lot of time, and I'm stereotyping. So this is not every 7, but they're like the FOMO people. They're like, they have all this fear of missing out, or they get excited and they want to try. Oh, we have the opportunity to go, like you said, we could go hiking. We could go axe throwing. Why would I want to stay in and clean my closet when I could go do something fun? Which totally I understand. But I think for me, where I've had success with the 7s who are my clients is really getting them to the point of belief that by removing the physical clutter, that's giving them freedom, by making space, by saying, I'm not going to just procrastinate. I see this a lot, especially in the summer with vacations, where people are constantly away and then your house becomes like a drop zone because you're coming in and it's like, oh, I was at the beach this week, or I was here and now I'm going to the mountains, or I'm going to my friend's lake house, or which is all great. And I'm not saying that you should sit there and clean your house 24/7. But what happens is after multiple weeks or a week being gone every single weekend, and then you come back and you're like, oh my God, my house is a disaster. No kidding. It's been on pause, unless of course you're in a position that you have people that are making sure the machine runs when you're not there. But for a lot of us, that it's, oh, the laundry is piling up. Oh, the bills are paying. Oh, the house does need to be dusted, or we do have to do all of these things. We have to go grocery shopping, all those boring, but those things that keep our homes and our lives running. And so how can we incorporate and make it a both and? I think for 7s, it's letting them believe that it's not an either or. That's what I find, because I think there's this fear that I see from them that it's got to be like, I'm giving up. If I do this, then I'm sacrificing something else, sacrificing my fun, my happiness. And I don't think it has to be that way.
Yeah, very much. And you mentioned FOMO, but calendar clutter is a thing for a 7. Not so much that they're doing all the things, but they're saying yes to all the things, and they are keeping themselves too busy to clean their house or something. But even just that of saying yes to 5 parties when you actually literally can only attend 1, you're cluttering your brain with all the yeses, not to mention you're giving a bunch of people false hope. But you actually gain freedom by only committing to 1, because then you can fully be present at that one event instead of mentally being at 5, or mentally being at 5 for the week before instead of just committing to the 1. You actually gain freedom by committing a bit.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So now that we've walked through, and again, I know there's a lot there and there is definite overlap. I'm wondering if there's any, like, regardless of your type, just any general thoughts that you have with regard to procrastination in life and how it relates to, like I said, any of the Enneagram types.
Yeah. So, sorry. Something I was discussing with a client the other day was knowing your why, which I think is clutter 101. Everybody should know their why. But I think especially for a lot of the types, or all of the types, just in different ways, you need to know your why so that you still have a reason for doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, or you fear it might go wrong, or you fear you're not going to be strong enough to complete it, or, the wrath of great. So you need to have that why to actually keep you anchored and keep you moving forward for what you actually need to do, so you don't get stuck in the feeling or the thinking or your instincts that are like running rampant on what you think is going to happen.
I love that. That's great. It would be a great place to pause, but I have one more question that I have been really dying to ask, because it's more about you as an Enneagram 1 and a mother of 5. So one of the things that I've seen is with a lot of 1s, because they have that inner critic, they are perfectionists by nature. They want things done right, and they know that they can do that. I see them struggling with delegation of things, and I'm talking about like everyday routine things, making the bed, loading the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher, helping with dinner. One of my closest, dearest friends in the world is a 1. And when I was first like learning the Enneagram and connecting the dots, she was like my guinea pig of, does this land with you? And she was like, oh my God, you're reading my mail kind of thing. And so I know for her, a lot of the calendar clutter and a lot of the stuff that she takes on is somewhat self-imposed, right? Because I have now raised 2 children that don't know how to make a bed or do basic life skills, because I had to control that so it was done right. So I'm wondering, how do you navigate that? in your life, in your family?
Poorly. As a one, I do it very poorly. Like you said, I have a hard time delegating even the small things. So like my kids do not do the dish. At best, I can get them to put their dishes in the sink with some water so they're not dry and crusty. But I've taught them. So like we homeschool. So my kids actually all go through a home ec class where I do properly teach them, but then I don't have them do the dishes because I know if I do, I'm going to spend an extra 5 minutes that I could have done originally reorganizing the dishwasher or searching for the spatula that should have been here, but they stuck it over here. I'd rather just do it the first time, even if it potentially in the very long run would save me time. Eventually my kids would know exactly where the dishes go and everything, but I don't want to suffer that slow, painful of everything's not in the right place in the meantime. So it's something I'm working on.
That's an area of growth. That's an area of growth,
Yes.
Brittany. And I
It's very much.
And I appreciate your honesty on that. And it really is, because it's not an easy thing for a lot of people to admit. And that's one of the biggest areas when it comes to clutter and organization, especially in a family unit, that I see that division of labor.
Yeah. And it's gotten better through the years. And so like when the kids were really little, I did absolutely everything. I cleaned the house fully, perfectly. And it was a weekly thing. Like the whole house got top to bottom cleaned. I did all the laundry. I did all the everything. And as they've gotten older and I've gotten more responsibilities or different responsibilities piled on, I've learned by necessity to let some things go. So I still put the laundry in the washer and the dryer, but then it comes out into a big basket and the kids have to fold it and put it away because I hate folding laundry anyways, but they are old enough to put it in their drawers. Their drawers look a mess. And my boys might not even right side out their shirts before they go in their drawer, but they're clean and they're in drawers and I don't have to see them. And that I think is one of those growth things for at least me as a one is.
There you go. That's a big growth thing for a lot of people because that is a time consuming thing. And the amount of laundry with 5 kids is a lot. All right. I could talk to you for hours, but I know this is a long episode that we've got, but there was so much content to cover. And I think you did a great job walking us through each of the different types and explaining like where and why they struggle. If people want to learn more about you, the work that you do, can you just let them know what the best place to connect up? And obviously we'll put links in our show notes before we take our last break.
I'm obviously most active on pretty much just Instagram. I have all my social medias are at Enneagram Explained. Instagram is the one that I'm always on. So it's very easy to contact me through there. And then my website is enneagramexplained.com. And that's what I do on Instagram gets put onto the website. So there's more of a permanent, long format, savable resource for everybody to find Enneagram info without having to dredge through all the books or go to all the workshops.
Absolutely. I love it. And of course, again, we will link to all things Brittany, her socials, website, everything in our show notes and on our podcast page. So if you're out and about, don't worry about not writing it down because we've got you covered. All right. We're going to take our last break and then we'll be back for our hot mess minute and just putting you in the hot seat for one last time. So sit tight. Hey guys, a lot of people have been asking to learn more about the Enneagram and clutter and whether or not our framework is for them. If you're interested in learning about how different personality types see the world, our Enneagram and Clutter online workshop might be just what you need. As you all know, clutter and disorganization is one of the leading causes of conflict within households, largely in part because the threshold for clutter varies from person to person. Some people get stressed out while other people are what I call clutter blind. This framework will help you understand yourself, your family members, and if you're a professional organizer, your clients in a whole new light. The insight that I've gained from applying these strategies isn't limited to just clutter. It's become a tool that I've used to improve communication with the people that I do life with, both personally and professionally. To learn more, visit simplybeorganized.com/Enneagram-clutter. That's simplybeorganized.com/Enneagram-clutter and use code Enneagram 10 to get started today. All right, Brittany, this has been a really helpful and insightful conversation. And like I said at the top of the episode, selfishly, I love talking to other people who are well-versed in this because it gives me other language to use. And I think it's just always helpful to hear from other practitioners about all of these things. So thank you. Thank you so much. I always like to ask our guests a couple of wrap-up questions because we are all about honesty and authenticity as well as inspiration. So I don't know if you're a reader or how much time you have to read with your busy household, but is there a book, and it could be an Enneagram book, it doesn't have to be an Enneagram book, that has either been like transformational in your life or something that you like refer to you're like, oh, this is a must read to friends. It could be something old, something new, whatever.
Yeah, you're right. I don't have a lot of time to read. So reading for fun has been like non-existent. I think I always have an Enneagram book that I refer to.
What's your go-to Enneagram book?
Yeah. So my go-to is usually The Complete Enneagram by Beatrice Chestnut.
Mm-hmm. First Enneagram book I ever read.
Is it? Mm-hmm. It's a good one. It's really thick, but that means you're getting more than just the flyby overview, which is why I like it. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably, in terms of Enneagram books, it ranks very high and the most impact of my life, just because it really helps me make sense of my motivations, but also the nuances of how I go through it, because you can have a room full of type 1s and they're not all actually going to look exactly the same because of certain different aspects of the Enneagram. And so that book walks through it with eye-opening, because I'm not as guilt-ridden as the stereotypical one. And so there was a little bit of a disconnect there of why wasn't I guilt-ridden like the other ones? And that book helps walk through it, which was very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then, of course, our last two questions that we ask every guest in every episode, which is, in this particular season of your life with kids ranging from 8 to 17, where do you feel the most organized in your life, and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
Okay. I actually feel most organized in my work, but that can be like my Enneagram work, the homeschool work. School starts in a month, so I've got the whole year's already planned out. I have all my books and everything. My schoolwork, because I'm trying to finish up a degree on top of everything. I told you I was a little bit 3-ish. I've got all the things, but that's very organized. I've got it structured. I stick to it. I get ahead on the essays and stuff I have to write, because if I don't, I won't have space for what life throws at me. So that part's very organized, I think. The hot mess, though, I think is relationship based. Not that all of my relationships are a hot mess, but putting in the effort to develop deeper relationships. We just moved a year ago, and I had a few past relationships scar me from trying to restart new friendships, because now I'm afraid of what if they go wrong too. It's very much, I'm procrastinating on developing relationships. And so that's a little bit of a hot mess. Some of it I'm trying to either justify or give myself grace by telling myself that I'm also still recovering. We're also still new again. Like, it's only been a year. But at the same time, I also know that's an area where I am dragging my feet. There's a good and a bad that's coming with dragging my feet and letting it be messy, because I'm afraid of navigating it again.
And it not being perfect.
Yeah, messing up once again.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I wish that we were close by, because I'd be like, come on over. I'll be your friend.
Yeah.
We'll hang out. Brittany, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on our show, sharing all of your wisdom and insight. This is just the tip of the iceberg, people, with this series. Next week, we're going to be talking about another clutter pitfall, which is indecision. That, what do I do? And so again, these are all intertwined, but they are different ways and reasons why why clutter results. And when we can really peel it back and start to understand it, that's the best way through it. And so definitely, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you tune in for next week. If you're new here, click the subscribe, follow button, YouTube, wherever, podcasts, whatever, all the things. And if you like this episode, feel free to drop us a review. We appreciate that. And I know other listeners do appreciate that, so that they know our show is worth a listen. And then the other final housekeeping that I forgot to mention at the top of the episode is we have a webinar coming up, and the sign up is on our website. If you just go to simplybeorganized.com, I'll also include it in the show notes. And it's geared more for people who are either professional organizers or are thinking about starting a professional organizing business. And it's going to be talking about how you can build a business. How can I make money doing this? How can I turn something that I feel like I'm passionate about or I'm interested in? How can I actually monetize this? Whether it's finding clients or doing speaking or starting a podcast or whatever. So if you are interested in this, it's totally free. I do them like once a year, these webinars for people, but it is limited. So make sure that you go ahead and register for that. And if you can't make the live, I think it's September 20th is when the actual event is. And if you can't make the live one, there will be a replay. So make sure that you just check that out in the show notes to register for that if that's something that you're interested in. Until next week, then, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth a listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simplythelletterBorganized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.